Next on the show at this stage, in the landmark hearing on same-sex marriages, the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, appearing for the centre, has argued that the issue of granting legal sanction for same-sex marriage be left to Parliament and that it was dealing with a very complex subject having a very profound social impact, and about 160 provisions of different laws would have to be gone into. On this part of the programme, legalising same-sex marriages, who should decide, the court or Parliament? We've had some fantastic voices over the last 1 week looking at this issue, and we've got great lawyers, same-sex couples, parents of those of LGBT children. So we're going to just go across to them. I'm joined at this stage by Yogi and Kabir. They are a queer couple who join us at the stage. I just wanted to understand, get your views on what the Solicitor General argued, any one of you, when he said that marriage is a socio-legal institution and that its recognition is necessarily a matter of legislative policy. In other words, it's not up to the court to decide, it's for politicians to decide. Do you accept that, either of you?
Not at all, actually, but I partly agree with the statement. The first half of the statement does make sense, that it definitely is a very, very integral part of our society and it should be dealt with all the more reason for us to be having these conversations. And it's not that the Parliament never had a chance to talk about it. And given this, that now that the courts have intervened and are ready to hear us out, I don't think that should be a problem in any way. We're not snatching away anybody else's rights. We're just asking for a more egalitarian society. And that I don't think is such a big thing.
Okay. Akash Agarwal, let me come to you and also just quickly look at what the court said on another aspect. In fact, this was the Solicitor General who said, and I quote, "This bit about procreation being the major purpose of marriage is controversial." This wasn't a quote, to be sure, from the Solicitor General, but the argument which was raised is that that procreation is there for a particular purpose, and therefore, if there are males and females in a marriage, then that is not achieved. How would you respond to that?
This whole idea of procreation is nothing but appallable. The largest populated country in the world wants more procreation as a policy to give equal marriage rights. Are we going to witch hunt people who cannot procreate? Because there are cisgender male and female who can't procreate, and they have rights to have a child, to be adopted. If we cannot, or if we as individuals cannot be a part of procreations, how can adoptions can be a denial in the process, or equal marriage rights be a denial in the process? So the whole farce of procreation is nothing but a very conservative idea.
Jha, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, with us. Mr. Jha, just on this one point, and it's one of the various points that actually came in, the bit about procreation being a major purpose of marriage. How do you respond to those who say that that procreation is an option, that marriage is much more fulfilling, it's not just limited to procreation?
Namaste Vishnuji and every other fellow panelist. Vishnuji, I think the idea of seeking a right which only Parliament can give from a court of law, and that too in a heterosexual system for homosexual couples, I think the idea is flawed. Whoever gave the idea to these petitioners are not doing any justice to the homosexual people altogether. Now, if there are bifurcations and if there are genuine demands or genuine requirement, who will fulfill that? I guess Parliament as well as state assemblies are well equipped to do that, and the Constitution clearly states that whoever is having the number in the Parliament will do it. Now you are asking the similar rights in the court forum. I think that is injustice, and that is what was pointed out by the Solicitor General. Okay. Now even if court is going to give them rights, what do you want out of it? What will happen to other rights? And that was another point which was pointed even by the petitioners. Now you cannot just say that, okay, let's consider it, that, okay, we will consider it as person and not men and women. And that is why today it was rightly pointed out by the Government of India that we need to look into the aspects of the debate of the Constituent Assembly as well as of the Parliament when this particular act came into picture.
No, but how can you suggest, Mr. Jha, that an act is, or the interpretation of that act is fixed? Interpretations change, society is dynamic, the nature of relationships have changed, acceptance has changed, and demands have changed as well. In fact, in earlier hearings, the Supreme Court mentioned this in different words, saying that interpretations of law and of the Constitution are dynamic. They aren't restricted to what we believed in the past.
Yeah, so but then one thing which came into light today only was the argument happened in Parliament between 1952 to 54, and that was that even then the parliamentarian knew about the homosexual couples or for that point.
No, but there was no demand for same-sex marriage being brought to the Supreme Court of India in 1954. It is now.
Yeah, so who will decide that the time is now and it needs to be changed? The Parliament again.
Definitely not the majority.
Not at all. Not at all. The Parliament. On what basis you say the
Okay, one sec.
No, I'm sorry. I would interrupt.
No interrupting. Hold on. No interrupting. We've been having very pleasant conversations over the last 1 week on such a heated topic. Meghna Kulkarni, you're a parent of a gay child. You've written to the Chief Justice of India. What is your request, or what have you pleaded to the CJI?
We are a collection of parents who have written.
And how many parents? How many parents under the Rainbow Parents are you? It's called Swikar, right?
400 plus parents.
400 plus.
Yes, it's called Swikar. The group is Swikar. The name itself suggests that we are for the acceptance. So we are about 400 plus parents, and I'm a parent of of two queer children. So,
how old are your kids?
What was your question?
How old are your kids?
My kids are, the elder one is 23 and the younger one is 18.
How do you feel as a parent that your children would never have the life that they want to lead in India without same-sex marriage being at least an option for them? Whether they choose to marry is a separate issue.
Yes.
But do you feel offended by the idea? Do you feel offended, Meghna, by the idea that some people have the right to get married and your kids don't?
Exactly. The bottom line of this whole issue is that it is it's a matter of choice. So if you are denying the choice to a certain group of people, I think that is unfair, that is injustice. So we as parents have joined and we have written this letter so that all of them, everybody has equal rights.
Yep. Aruna Desai, in fact, is the founding member of Swikar, also with us on this program. You know, how, Aruna, would you look at what the Solicitor General has said today when he said that the very heart of the Special Marriage Act is recognition of marriage between a quote-unquote conventional man and a conventional woman, and that the request which is now being made by the petitioners is to rewrite this basis to suit the circumstances that they are posing, and that if that basis has to be rewritten, it has to be done in Parliament.
Yes, yes, we are requesting whoever is the deciding authority, we are requesting to rewrite the law and allow everyone to marry. Let them decide whether they want to marry or not. Let our children decide.
Are you also the parent of a queer child?
Yes.
How old is your child?
32-year-old.
And does he seek to, or does he or she seek to be in a committed relationship? In other words, a marriage?
Yes.
And is that something that you've always hoped for a long period of time, that your child is happy in a marriage? Is that been something that you constantly think about?
Yeah, so when we have written this letter, it's not only for my child, but it's for the whole community, for all the children, you know. On behalf of them, we are writing that let the law be there for the same-sex couple and for everybody for that matter. Let them decide whether they want to marry or not.
Okay.
When the law is there for heterosexual people, not everybody marries. No? So some people do not marry also.
Sure.
So let them decide. But the law has to be there for, if it is there for me.
Because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's the right to choice.
For everyone.
At one level, we are talking about same-sex marriage and all sorts of rights, but ultimately it's that right to choice which has been denied, which is what you're fighting for. Again, Yogi or Kabir, a question to either one of you. This is what the Solicitor General said. You cannot substitute legislative intent which is otherwise manifest, and you cannot read words of larger amplitude in place of words of smaller amplitude. In other words, you cannot say persons instead of man or male or woman. I mean, it's not good enough to just use words instead of the words which have been used in the past. How would you respond to that?
You know, the funny thing is about this is that the stance that they are trying to present is really sad, because it's kind of a self-referencing point. They're saying, I am right because I have said I was right. And if your basis of communication is that, and on top of it, you're saying that not only am I not going to listen to you, this is not the forum, and I will choose the forum, and I will choose the reference points as well. So when you start that with that basis, you are obviously not on an equal footing. So how can, and the basic questioning of this entire communication and this issue is that how can majority decide the rights of a minority? It is statistically, historically, and scientifically proven that queer community will always be a minority, which has always existed and will always continue to exist. How can the majority take a call on a minority without even letting them have a voice?
So, Yogi, let me ask you another aspect in all of this. I brought it up a couple of days back. Isn't there a shocking lack of understanding of the difference between a male and a female and a man and a woman? The idea of male or female is very different from man and woman. You know, one is a social construct, one is an idea, and one is based on genitals. Isn't that something which has been confused very often, the difference between the two?
It is. And I think it will take some time for people to understand that everything is not black and white. And
not binary.
And not binary, of course, it's not binary. And I'll just give example of my own parents. Like, I come from a very conservative Marwari business family. And for my parents to understand what Kabir means to me, what our relationship is, like we have been together for more than 7 years now. So from a point to saying that please just be friends, to now, okay, you are partners. So it takes time for people to understand, even for the loved ones to understand what is the emotion behind a relationship, I feel. And I think that's something which will take some time for the society to accept. But for that, it's very, very important that this law comes into.
Because the conversations will open up. See, the question that you asked about the men and women and female and male, it's the very difference of you posing this question to begin with, and starting a conversation is letting people understand that there is actually a difference to begin with, which wasn't even talked about up until now. Why? Because of whatever conservative behaviors, lack of awareness. All of this will follow once law proceeds.
Rahul Ishwar, you had a point. Go ahead.
Two submissions, Vishnuji. I think we are all on the same page when we should say we should not have any homophobia and discrimination. And my deep respects to those parents who are supporting their children, even though I differ with them with utmost respect. That's a great gesture, because parents coming out and supporting will definitely have a much more impact to their community, and all the best to them. Two things. One, from the entire right-wing spectrum, we don't agree with the whole social construct theory of gender. We believe there is biological, neurological base for gender, and that is not the artificial social construction from the left liberal prism, which says, you are only born with one thing and it's a social construction. We don't agree with that entire theory. Not only in India, in US, even in Europe, there is a strong debate regarding the whole left liberal premise, which says man is only born
but 1 second, your identification as a man or woman or anything that you choose is not a left liberal construct. You can be extremely right wing and still be gay. And you don't have to identify with being a man or a woman. You can identify with whatever you want. It's
the
a
whole
spectrum.
idea of identification.
Rahul, it's a spectrum. It's not left or right, queer or straight. It's an identity that you seek and identify with, which could be anything.
I concede that there is a viewpoint like that. I concede with respect.
But it's not left liberal for heaven's sake.
Rahul, it's not left liberal like that. But the whole idea of so-called identification, that you're only being identified as one thing or the other, is an idea that we all don't agree with. I mean, I am being very honest in saying this. This is at the base of it.
I think he confused it with politics.
People are born as male, female, and
right and left
behavior that can be exceptions. That is never the norm. That's a variation in behavior that needs more education, sensitization, discussion. But we absolutely disagree with the Honorable Chief Justice of India point of view that there is absolutely no biological man or woman. And that's taking it too far. That is non-scientific. That is not academic.
There is no, that's not what he said, Rahul. He said that, identification, you don't make an identification based on your genitalia. Your genitalia obviously defines you as a man or as a male or a female. No one is in denial of that. But what you choose to identify with in terms of your sexuality is a very different issue. That's what he was pointing out.
I mean, with due respect, he is our Chief Justice, so all due respect, but we all know he's a progressive person, progressive in quotes, and a liberal person. So we know where Chief Justice is leading this to. Whole respect to that. If a verdict comes, we are all bound to respect too, because it's the law of the land, and Supreme Court is the final, watchdog of our constitution, and the final, interpretation is coming from them. But, more discussion and debate needs to be there. Only two submissions. One, social acceptance is as important as legal acceptance, or sometimes more important than legal acceptance. So there needs to be much more discussion, deliberation, sensitization, education, more kind of conversation that mainstream media can definitely help the homosexual community in doing. Second, there are three main apprehensions. One is nature, one is culture, one is future. So there are also legal aspects like adoption,
nature, culture, and future. All right.
These are the three aspects. So you may agree or disagree with it, but these are the three broad.
No, that's fine. Akash, would you like to come in? That on the issue of nature, culture, and future, there are differences.
Absolutely.
So if you look at the issue of nature, the argument is that somehow you are unnatural. Let's take that one first. How would you respond?
Yeah, first, let me tell Rahul that don't worry. There's so many Jai Shri Ram people back here in our community. Don't worry. We're not all liberals. We're very much voting for your space and your identity. It's that you are losing on those people who have been very much pro to the government. Don't forget that. You're cutting down your own people because there is a community full of right wings too. First. Second, and I'm going to take 2 minutes, Vishnu, I'll say
Go
this.
ahead.
Well, Shashank mentions the parliament space. They somehow forget the fact that the parliament has only 40% people who are in majority, not 100%. And because they have a 40 to 45% parliament majority, they think they can go away and win what they wish to and bring in whatever policy they can. And that is why they want the process to go in parliament, because their ideology is clean and clear, that they're not looking forward for this thing to come out and be accepted. So why do we trust a parliament whose majoritarian power ideology we know where it will lead? Third, when you call out nature, culture, and future, in which nature does it say that the whole idea of nature is only to procreate? Because if it is so, then whereas a man is procreating, he's just a supposedly supportive procreator, right? And what about that nature which is getting imbalanced with orphan kids on road, with system collapsing, with no food, education and medical care for these kids? When you talk about culture, have you forgotten the Mohini Roop of the Vishnu who transcends from a man to a woman, gets married or gets into a space with Shiva and procreates Ayappa? Which culture are you referring? Are you not referred in space with Khajrao? Are you not in touch with Ardhanarishwar? Future, as I said again, future of a nation depends upon the population. that will be the workforce we're coming from. That fear of future is also about that one fine day the right conservative speaks about that there'll be a sarvanash. So should we have a sarvanash right now? If there's so that fear of future, almost like how fear of future is being said ki Hindu khatre mein hai. Now the so-called future fear is of heterosexuality khatre mein hai. It's absolutely farce.
Okay, one sec. You made lots of points, and I want Shashank has been waiting patiently. Reply to some of them. I think the last point he made is so important. What is there to be scared about? If the law protects us all, and if the law protects those who are queer, right, and if the law is made to ensure that rights are secure for everybody, then what do we have to lose?
Vishnuji, Akash had too many flaws in his arguments. I fail to see that from where will I start. But then there are 3 points. Point number 1, government is 40%, but we are talking about parliament. Parliament talks about both government and the opposition. So the entire parliament is required to pass a law.
Sir, let's not go
because let him make his point. Akash, don't this thing. Let him make his point, please. Yeah, go ahead.
We all know how bill comes in parliament
as well as please, Akash, please. I am so sorry. Please don't disturb. Parliament of India as well as 28 states and 6-7 union territories, everyone has right, not court. And I'm just saying that not the government of the country, but the parliament will decide this particular thing. And this is not what I am saying, but the Constitution of India is saying. Point number 2, when you are comparing Mohini avatar of Vishnuji or Ardhanareshwar of Shivji, you need to also tell the audience of NDTV here that not single instance of same-sex marriage in the entire history of Hindu civilization ever has been recorded. Can you name a single homosexual marriage to taken place? No. And point number 3, when you are talking about the welfare
I had a couple on my program last week who got married, and they said that I don't give a damn about whether it's recognized or not.
Third point. No. But then if they are putting this point, then I will have to ask the counter question. And point number 3, the welfare of the child will not be decided by the parents, but for the child it will be decided by the state. And that is the basis of the Juvenile Justice Act of this country. That is the basis of the Guardianship Act of this country. And that is the basis of the entire Hindu marriage system in this country. If you go through the history of marriage in the Hindu society, which is also the basis of the Special Marriage Act, the marriage system started not for the welfare of the husband, not for the welfare of the wife, but for the welfare of the child. So it will have to be decided by the state.
And so therefore your assumption, the point you mentioned about the Special Marriage Act, and personal laws, of course, that is important, and that is the heart of this debate, and I suspect it's going to be a ruling which is going to be looking at all of that very closely. But I think respectfully, Shashank, to suggest that a child who has gay parents is going to suffer or does suffer, that's just not based on anything.
I'm just saying that we do not have proper data to even evaluate.
Why? Of course there's data.
No, there is no data.
Of course there's data. There are any number of studies. I will forward you the studies.
So can that study force the court of this country to formulate a new law?
No, in fact, no, but just to the point that children of those of gay parents, right, will somehow suffer, somehow not be able to develop properly, psychologically, etc., will not have proper role models.
But that is for the state to decide.
No, but I'm just saying that argument is not correct. I mean, it's not factually correct. My only submission is that there are so many examples of children, for example, who've been absolutely fine. But let me not be the
Vishnu,
guest on my own program.
But the very fact is this that
you may be completely right.
Us? We are also kids of a cisgender mainstream society.
You may be completely right. The only point is,
are we airdropped from somewhere? Are we airdropped from somewhere, and we are not the children of a cisgender society? We are. And what are you leading us to? To a homophobia like this? To creating barricades for us to live and grow? What will you give to other generations if you cannot give it to your own generations right now? There is people who are working in Swikar. There are Yogi and Kabir, 2 corners. One is parent, the other is a couple. And both are on the ends of misery because you think we are not worth of equal rights. So
no.
The future is inclusion, as
simply
completely
wrong. the Act of 2019 for transgenders includes everyone. Point number one, there is no discrimination at all. As far as the marriage rights is concerned, you, me, Vishnuji, Akashji, anyone in this panel, this 140 crore population, or for that point judiciary, is not having that power to do that. And how they are demanding it? They are demanding it to change the heterosexual system, which is based on the religion and the culture. My only point is, if there is a genuine demand, and if there are welfare of
heterosexual system,
we're not changing. I'm sorry.
It's a system for human beings.
Exactly. It's not a heterosexual system.
It's
Just
a
because
system.
it's majority doesn't mean that you
that
claim
has been
it.
put in the code.
It's your own.
It is
All right. Okay. Look, I'm out of time now, but it's been fascinating conversation, and I'd like to thank all of you very much for being with us.